Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and I'm taking care of business. Joining me today is Rob Roach, Deputy Chief Economist and Managing Director at ATB Financial. Thanks for joining us today, Rob.
Great to be on Mario.
All right, let's talk about the economy in Alberta and the forecast and outlook that ATB put out today. Forecast showing 5% economic growth this year, 3.5 next year, and 2.7 the following year. Tell me a little bit about the background to that and why the forecast is predicting those numbers for the economy.
Sure, and despite no shortage of global headwinds, we all are feeling the impact of higher inflation. We know that interest rates have and will continue to rise to try to deal with inflation. We've got the horrible war in Ukraine and its economic impacts. And of course, the pandemic still hasn't fully gone away by any means. So you put that all together and, Alberta is in the same situation as economies around the world, having to deal with those headwinds. And that's going to cause some problems for our economy. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And certainly many Albertans and Alberta businesses are going to feel that, especially the inflation and interest rate side of that. On the brighter side, because we're a major commodities producer, oil topping the list, the stronger prices that have come along recently, in part, unfortunately, because of the war in Ukraine, that has given a bit of a boost to Alberta's economy. And that is helping to boost a recovery that was underway last year. So as we get deeper into 2022 and next year, that's why we are seeing some relatively strong growth in Alberta and probably will lead the country in economic growth this year.
Where does that put us in terms of getting back to, say, pre-recessionary times?
Well, it's helping because as we all know, 2020, we took the deepest hit among the provinces in terms of our economic activity. And we are still recovering from that, still filling in that hole. But by the end of, or really in 2022 this year, we'll be back to where we were in terms of GDP in 2019 before the pandemic. However, on a per capita basis, because there's been some population growth, we won't fully catch up to pre-pandemic levels per person until next year. Then we'll start to grow again relative to 2019.
All right, let's talk about employment, Rob. What do you see happening in the next couple of years for the labor market in the province?
Yeah, well, again, it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride. On the positive side of things, certainly much better than we saw early in the pandemic. Overall, the number of jobs in the province has surpassed its pre-pandemic level. There's still some sectors, tourism, food and accommodation, and a few others that haven't fully caught up, but we do expect that to continue to improve. Tourism is a great example. It's starting to really pick up again, but not yet back to normal. So overall, we are seeing some good job growth and we expect that to continue. Unemployment rate will come down. We might see some more people encouraged to look for work or come to Alberta looking for work, which might actually keep the unemployment rate up a little bit higher than you might expect, given the job growth. At the same time, we're still going to be seeing skill shortages. And so some employers having trouble finding the right people with the right skills and experience. So it's not just a matter of having unemployed people available. They have to have the right skills and experience. So that's going to continue to be a challenge as we get deeper into the year and next year.
Can you talk a little bit about overall and when we talk about the economies and we talk about 5% growth, what does that mean, I guess, for all sectors out there? Is there like a trickle down effect that once the economy is going well, it kind of goes right across the board to everywhere?
Yes and no. I mean, overall, you definitely want GDP to be moving in the direction it is, which is growing and increasing. It's definitely bad, usually for almost every nook and cranny of the economy when you're contracting in a recession. With that said, so it's a blunt instrument measuring GDP, and that 5% growth, again, it is in the right direction and it's strong, but it doesn't mean that every family, every business, every worker is going to experience that. And part of this, part of the boost is we are seeing some real strength in the oil and gas sector, and that does ripple out. but it might not affect you if you're a tourism operator who's still struggling from the last 2 years. So it's helpful, but not necessarily across the board. And we do have to keep that in mind.
Okay, let's talk about those oil prices. Any thoughts of what we can expect in the near future when it comes to those prices?
Yeah, always dangerous to be trying to forecast the price of oil. Notoriously volatile, which everyone in Alberta is aware of. But there's a lot of signs that suggest that they will stay elevated in 2022. It's whatever. Hopefully, there'll be some sort of peaceful resolution to the conflict in Ukraine, but it'll still take time for the oil sector to kind of get back into balance in terms of amount of supply and demand. Now that could change as it has in the oil sector on a dime, but the expectation in our forecast sort of assumes oil, WTI around that $95 mark average in 2022, and coming down a little bit off that as we get further out.
Now we know, Rob, that we've had tough times in this province over the last few years, dating back to 2014 when oil prices started to go down and a few recessions later, et cetera. Beyond the numbers that you're seeing now, what's your sense of the mood out there in the province?
Yeah, great question, Mario. And the mood was pretty gloomy. And it has been gloomy for a while, really since the recession, that deep recession of 2015, 2016. We started to recover, and then we hit the pipeline wall in terms of our capacity to move oil out of the province, then the pandemic. So I think the mood has improved. There's still, a sense of anxiety, especially now with the high inflation and the looming interest rate increases. So, but I think there is certainly more optimism than there was going back a year or two. But it is cautious optimism, and we hear of some positive announcements lately about different projects and different companies moving to Alberta. I think that's given us a bit of a sense of things are at least moving in the right direction, and hopefully we'll keep doing so.
All right, super. Thanks, Rob, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mario. Appreciate it.
All right, super. That was Rob Roach, Deputy Chief Economist and Managing Director at ATB Financial. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, taking care of business. Thanks for joining us today.